Welcome to Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. This podcast is a space for inspiration, soulful insights, and meaningful life lessons. Your host, Kimen Petersen, draws from personal stories and powerful conversations with remarkable people to help illuminate your path. These episodes reflect his lived experiences and thoughtful perspectives, all aimed at encouraging you to live life with greater authenticity, joy, and ease. Your Inner Advocate is here to help you tune in, trust your inner wisdom, and move through life with more clarity, flow, and fulfillment.
Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about pressure. So just sit with me for a minute. Not with an intention of being fixed, not to be pushed, and not to be told what to do next, but just to rest. Because the truth is, if you are listening to this, there's a really good chance you're already extraordinary. And extraordinary people don't need more pressure. They're already carrying. Life presses on them, expectations lean on. Dreams whisper and sometimes even shout. And then somewhere along the way, they start shoulding on themselves. Not pooping, but should. I should be further by now. Have you heard this? I should want this more. I should be better at handling all of this. I really want to tell you, you don't grow flowers by yelling at soil. You see, one of my favorite sayings is stop shoulding on yourself. Somebody said it to me years and years ago because I was sitting in this place that I should be here or I should be there. And there's nowhere we should be besides right where we are. Because where we are is part of the necessary path that will get us to where we need to be. Now, have you heard of this or do you have this? This is always a good question. There's this illusion that pressure equals progress. Okay, so let me differentiate. When I was highly unmotivated and I wasn't moving forward in life, and I really was not working towards being an extraordinary person, when I was starting out something, the beginner, sometimes, pressure was necessary. But the truth is, extraordinary people are so far down the path already that they actually don't need pressure anymore. And yet they still hear this thing that's actually not true. Somewhere down the road, they were taught pressure is noble. That if we're really hard on ourselves, it means we care. That if we keep tightening the grip, we'll become who we're supposed to be. But the central nervous system doesn't speak the language of should. It speaks a language of safety. Extra pressure does not sharpen extraordinary people. It exhausts them. It takes away. It's detrimental. Because extraordinary people get all the work done anyway. And when you stack pressure on top of getting all the work done, that just makes it harder. There was a poet, David Whyte. He once wrote, "The antidote to exhaustion is not rest, it's wholeheartedness." And pressure disconnects us from our wholeness. See, I feel like we have to lean more into trust. When we're down this road that we've been going on a long time, trust that we know what to do. Trust that we'll get all the work done. Lean into it, but don't push and pressure yourself. Because for really amazing people, pressure is detrimental. It takes away, it doesn't give. It's almost like the beginner sometimes needs a little pressure to start. But once you have momentum, pressure is almost like moving through mud. So let me say this plainly, like an older man who's earned the right. Quit shoulding on yourself. Because every should carries a quiet accusation that you're not enough yet. And the truth is, you're always exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be there. Because if you didn't need to be there, you wouldn't. And in the future, when you no longer need to be there, you just won't. You are enough, just as you are. Extraordinary people already get all the work done. They don't need whips. They don't need permission to breathe. Pressure is for the unmotivated, the people who want to get started but don't have the way. I think I said it a long time ago. It's like motivation doesn't come first. When you're unmotivated and you're trying to wait for motivation to move forward, that's not what comes first. Action. And extraordinary people have already learned this. When they're unmotivated, they get out and do their run anyway. They get to the workout. They start. And they keep on moving forward. And eventually they're motivated. So like I said, pressure might motivate the uncommitted, but it crushes the devoted. And you're devoted. So when it comes to sports, there is a cost to constant tension. Stress. Stress increases cortisol levels to the point where you go into the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, which, might sound slightly effective, but if you spend too much time there, it's detrimental. It can impact your sleep. It impacts your lymphatic system, so you don't heal properly. It affects your digestive system. You wonder why people get upset stomachs when they're so stressed, or they get like valve distress when they're about to do a big event. This is why. It's high cortisol levels. But the problem is in sports, we endlessly talk about toughness, but very little about softness. Yet it seems like some of the best athletes seem to understand that. Understanding that if it's too tight, the muscles are too tight, there's a chance of damage. Tight minds, if you're too stressed, if you're focusing on what you don't want, you're going to miss opportunity. And when you're so stressed in your heart, you burn out. You're exhausted. Because extraordinary performance, if you see somebody who's like a beautiful runner or incredible at tennis or any sport, they flow. They don't force, they flow. They have this rhythm to them. I'm reminded, Bruce Lee once said, do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. And strength does not come from pressure. It comes from trust. I've seen so many athletes who put so much extra pressure on themselves. And if you think of it, it's mostly external in a sense, but it becomes internalized. The pressure to perform, the pressure when they're up against competition that they feel like is better than them. The I'm not talented enough. But the truth is, consistency beats out talent every day. If you are sitting in this pressure place where you feel like you're not talented enough, then you have to find an attribute of yourself that you really know and believe you have. Let me tell you a story about me. So when I went back to school, I was kind of terrified because I never thought I was intellectually gifted. I was stressed because it wasn't until I was 26 that I found out that I was dyslexic. So I knew I had a learning disability. When I was young in high school, I just thought I wasn't smart because I couldn't read fast and I couldn't spell. And when I found out I was dyslexic, it made sense. But it didn't overthrow the idea that I'm not intellectually gifted. So when I was getting ready to go back to school, I thought, I'm going to have to hit this head on. I'm going to have to do something about this. Because I can't just sit there and pressure myself into working harder if underneath there's this, I'm not smart enough. So I was looking at different techniques or things to do, and I came upon, what do they call it? Affirmations. Now, I'm not going to throw the whole thing out the window. It's probably beautiful for some people, but how I heard it was, if you don't feel you're intelligent, your affirmation is, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart, I'm smart. And underneath, you're stupid. And for me, that was like putting a sweet icing on a crab cake. It's not going to be great. So I had to figure out, what can I do to overcome this? So I looked at my life. What is something I really know about myself? Powerful. Like I know the truth. And it's been parroted to me many times. And it's the one thing I do not challenge with my internal dialogue. And the truth is, in my life, I've heard this all through my life. In jobs, I've been told I work too hard and I need to slow down. I know I'm the hardest worker I've met. And I realized what I could do rather than worrying about being gifted intellectually. The truth is, I could work so hard that whether or not I'm gifted doesn't matter. It's not a thing anymore. And that's what I did. I'd study 4.5 hours after school, 19 hours on the weekend. For the first time in my life, I achieved an honor roll all 5 terms of school. And it wasn't because of pressure. And it wasn't because I was gifted. It was because I used a part of myself that I knew to be true. So I would never pressure myself into hard work. It's just who I am. So if you're somebody that experiences incredible pressure on yourself, especially if you're an extraordinary athlete or business or anything, maybe you need to take a look at who you actually are and what has given you this success up to this point. And rather than being worried about whether or not you're talented or not, find that one thing that you know to be true about yourself and lean into that. Just lean into being a hard worker. Another thing we can do, the idea of pressure versus presence. Pressure lives in the future. Presence lives right here, right now. Recently I'd gone through a bit of a very stressful period. And I realized at one point that I was kind of paralyzed by fear, not physically, but my mental state got a little bit paralyzed by fear. I was looking at finances and looking at how busy my business was. I was looking at my future retirements, blah, blah, blah. And I got caught up in this cycle of being afraid of the future. And fortunately, one day I realized, the truth is what's going on here, all this stress here has nothing to do with what's going on right now. It has me living into the future or into a future that I'm afraid will happen, but there's no guarantee. And that the only thing I can do is find myself back to the now. And I don't know if you've ever heard my podcasts before. Every once in a while, I talk about how do we get grounded. And I'm not talking about grounding as a mystic experience. I'm talking about simply getting into the present moment. And my best technique for that is just putting my feet on the ground and pressing them into the ground. Try that right now. Put your feet flat on the ground if you can, if it's safe, and start pressing your feet into the ground. And just keep on pressing your feet in the ground until you're aware that you have. Because we go through life not even knowing that we have feet. And if you do it for long enough and you're present and you stop, you'll notice that now I know I have feet. Now try to think about something that scares you or something in the future or some pressure you want to put on yourself. You can't. You cannot be in the future and the present at the same time. So one of the things I tell athletes, if they're standing on the line, start pressing your feet in the ground. If you're really nervous, breathe, breathe until you know you have feet again. Or you're coming in for a presentation or whatever you're doing, try that. Because extraordinary people do not fail because they don't try hard enough. That's not a thing. They falter when they forget how to be. Pressure says prove yourself. Presence says express yourself. and expression. That's where the magic lives. I also want to define something that's so important, and I've defined it before, but I'll bring it up again. So this is the idea of, like, extraordinary people don't fail because they don't try hard enough. And this is understanding that, well, let me just tell you this story. I had an English teacher in grade 11, Mrs. Samborski. It's like the only teacher I really clearly remember. And she was amazing. But she gave one of the greatest pieces of life advice I've ever heard. And she said, the secret to happiness is very simple. It's just do your very best every day. But never compare today's best to yesterday's best. Because some days you'll move mountains, and other days your best will be just showing up. And that's stuck with me. Was this idea of, like, I'm going to give 100%. And then later on in my life, in my 30s, I was at a conference and there was a speaker there, and he got up to talk and he said, hey, listen, like 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago, I had laryngitis. I could not bring sound out of my mouth. And he said, today, I'm running at about 30%. But I'm committed to giving 100% every time I go out. So you can count on me to give 100% of that 30%. Think about it. You can't give more than you have, but you can give everything you have. And when you give everything you have, even if you're running at 30%, you give 100% of 30%. That's giving your all. So what if the next level, the one you're looking for, the one you're moving towards, isn't about more discipline? What if it's about more compassion? What if easing the grip doesn't make you weak? It just makes you freer. It's interesting. I learned this when I do manual therapy. And when I am working on somebody and I tense up my body, like working really hard, their body tenses up too. But if I relax my body and work, their body relaxes. And we get a better result. When I started working, I was so tense that my body, my back, my shoulders, neck, everything hurt. And now my life is more of a flow. And I work way more than I used to, and I have way less pain. So what if easing grip doesn't make you weaker, it makes you freer, maybe even better? I've watched many strong people burn out, and I've watched gentle ones endure. And the difference was never effort. It was kindness towards themselves. Kindness over pressure. Self-kindness. Internal advocate over internal critic. The critic says you're not doing enough. The advocate says you got this. Keep on going. So right now, today, tonight, wherever you are, lay the weight down. And it doesn't have to be forever, just for a moment or just for now. Because you don't need more pressure. You need more trust. You've done enough. You are enough. You don't have to push any harder. Trust that who you are right here, right now, is already enough. Enough to continue. And that's how extraordinary people endure. And thank you for spending this little bit of time with me. I really appreciate it. Keep laying the weight down and keep building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.